For much of modern nutrition policy, the guiding principle has been energy balance, calories in versus calories out. This calorie-centric approach has shaped food labeling, dietary guidelines, and public health campaigns for decades. And while it is true that consuming more energy than we expend results in weight gain, this model fails to account for a far more insidious and overlooked reality: the quality and composition of those calories. All calories are not metabolically equal. The structure, ingredients, and degree of processing in food dramatically influence how our bodies absorb, respond to, and regulate energy intake. If we are serious about tackling the global obesity epidemic, we must move beyond simply counting calories and begin regulating what those calories are made of. Today's food supply has been transformed by industrialization. Most of what populates supermarket shelves is not food in its natural form, but engineered products, stripped of fiber, chemically stabilized, reconstituted from base ingredients, and enhanced with additives to increase flavor, shelf life, and consumer appeal. These ultra-processed foods, UPFs, are hyper-convenient, hyper-palatable, and hyper-rewarding, but also hyper-problematic. They are digested differently, absorbed more completely, and have a dramatically different impact on hunger, satiety, and metabolism compared to whole foods. One key issue is the way UPFs bypass the body's natural satiety mechanisms. Whole foods, such as intact grains, legumes, vegetables, and unprocessed meats, are typically dense in fiber, water, and complex structures that require time and effort to digest. This slow process triggers a cascade of hormonal signals that promote fullness and prevent overeating. In contrast, UPFs are soft, rapidly absorbable, and often low in fiber and protein. They are designed to be consumed quickly, sometimes in seconds, which compresses eating time and blunts the satiety response. This leads to passive overconsumption, not because people lack discipline, but because their physiological signaling has been hijacked by engineered food. In addition to satiety disruption, the inflammatory and metabolic effects of food composition matter. UPFs often contain refined seed oils, emulsifiers, synthetic sweeteners, colorants, and preservatives, many of which have been linked to systemic inflammation, gut dysbiosis, insulin resistance, and even neurochemical alterations. For example, emulsifiers used to stabilize texture may interfere with the gut lining and contribute to metabolic dysfunction. High-fructose corn syrup and refined sugars in liquid form rapidly spike blood glucose and insulin, contributing to fat storage and energy crashes. Even the food matrix, the physical structure of a food, impacts the body's response. A calorie of fiber-rich nuts behaves very differently in the body than an equivalent calorie from a sugary breakfast bar. There is also growing concern about the way foods are fractionated and reassembled in factories. Instead of eating whole wheat, we now consume wheat starch, wheat gluten, and maltodextrin. Instead of milk, we consume casein isolates and whey protein concentrates. These extracted components lack the synergistic nutritional integrity of real food. They confuse the body's regulatory systems and often carry with them a higher caloric availability. In effect, UPFs not only encourage excess intake, they ensure maximum caloric delivery with minimum metabolic resistance. This is why simply focusing on eating fewer calories or shrinking portion sizes is no longer adequate. A person may reduce their total intake, but still consume a diet overwhelmingly composed of UPFs, remaining vulnerable to the metabolic traps these foods set. The food industry is adept at producing low-calorie snacks and drinks that still reinforce poor dietary patterns. The issue isn't just how many calories we consume, but how those calories are packaged, chemically, physically, and nutritionally. So, what would meaningful regulation look like in this context? First, it would involve setting limits not only on sugar, salt, and fat, but also on the degree of processing itself. Policies could restrict the use of certain additives, enforce limits on food fractionation, or mandate minimum whole food content in packaged products. Clear front-of-package warning labels should communicate not just caloric content, but the level of processing and metabolic risk. Standardized definitions of terms like minimally processed, whole food, or plant-based must be established to prevent deceptive marketing. Second, governments could set reformulation targets for the entire food industry, encouraging companies to rebuild their products from real ingredients rather than chemical derivatives. Much like trans fats were regulated out of the food supply over time, certain industrial formulations could be phased out in favor of nutritionally intact alternatives. Public procurement policies could also serve as a powerful lever. If hospitals, schools, prisons, and military bases refuse to serve ultra-processed foods, demand shifts and industry innovation follows. Nutritional standards for public institutions should reflect the importance of food composition, not just calorie limits. Crucially, these reforms must go hand in hand with broader public education efforts. People need to understand not only the danger of excessive calories, but why those calories behave differently depending on their source. Teaching individuals to read labels, identify real food, and understand the difference between an apple and apple-flavored snacks empowers better choices, but only if those choices are also made accessible, affordable, and culturally appropriate. Ultimately, the obesity crisis is not simply about gluttony or inactivity. It's a consequence of a food system that floods the market with metabolically disruptive, low-quality calories, calories that undermine our biology, confuse our hunger signals, and perpetuate disease. If we continue to ignore food composition in favor of simplistic calorie counting, we will fail to address the root of the problem. Regulating the structure and content of the food supply is not an overreach, it's a necessary correction. Just as governments regulate air quality, water safety, and pharmaceutical standards, they must begin treating food not only as a commodity, but as a central determinant of health. The cost of inaction is already showing up in hospital wards, national budgets, and shrinking life expectancy across developed and developing nations alike. Calories matter, but what's in them matters even more.